What's up guys, I'm Mr. Audio, and if you're new here on this channel we talk about music production, sound design, mixing, mastering, and pretty much anything to get your tracks ready for release. And if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Okay YouTube, it's about high time I make another one of these videos. Because I've seen a lot of mixing advice out there that's just not true, or it's incredibly bad advice. And we're going to talk about them in this video. Gain staging really doesn't matter once it's already been recorded. Alright, gain staging between plugins, just make sure you're not clipping, especially if they're just digital plugins. But if they're analog emulations, it's meant to emulate the analog hardware itself, so different input values will change how that reacts to the sound. And I'm very surprised that I don't see anybody using clip gain the way I do. I like to level out most of my performances before going into EQ and compression, just so that the waveform's a bit more even. Now I do this with a light hand, not a heavy hand, because it tends to sound unnatural when overdone. It just helps smooth out the waveform just a little bit so the compressors have an easier time, or whatever else I'm running it through. And using these methods makes achieving loudness at the end result a lot easier. Next, arbitrary values don't exist. Any Instagram graph, Facebook comment, or even YouTube comment that tells you to boost this or cut this for more punch or whatever, without ever even hearing your work, is really bad advice. You can't give someone a generalistic, arbitrary value that works on every case. Do you know how stupid that sounds? Almost as stupid as balancing your mix in mono. Which is my next topic. You should never balance your mix in mono. Now, there are benefits to listening to your mix in mono, but there's only two of them. Now first, let me discuss those two benefits so you understand what you can use mono for. Well, if you listen to your mix in mono, you'll be able to tell if you have any phasing issues. Now phasing occurs when two very similar or identical waveforms are not quite in line with each other or out of phase with each other, causing some phase cancellations. Now I've talked about phase cancellation and phase relationships on this channel before. I'll link a kick video up here, but I'll probably do another video on it because it deserves its own video. Now you can also listen to your mix in mono to uncover any frequency masking issues. Now if your mix sounds a little muddy towards the low end, this might be happening to you. And I'll probably do a video on how to mitigate both of these issues because it deserves some talking about. So just keep on the lookout for that in the near future. Now the reason you shouldn't balance your mix in mono, and by balancing I mean adjusting the faders, the volumes of each individual track. Now the reason you shouldn't balance your mix in mono is because what mono is it's the left plus the right divided by 2. Alright? Now what that means is if you have something that's just on the left side or something that's just on the right side, it's going to be divided by 2 in volume. It's going to be halved. You'll see a gain reduction of about 6 decibels. Now this could be a problem if you made your production in stereo. You got your 2 guitars panned hard right and hard left. You put that mix in mono and all of a sudden you're like, wow, those guitars sound a bit quiet. So you adjust the faders and you bring them up. And then when you flip your mix back to stereo, expecting to have a finished mix, your guitars are twice as loud as you want them to be. And you're like, wow, my ears are bleeding. What's wrong? Well, what's wrong is you balanced your mix in mono. Don't do it. Just don't do it. And if you're like, well, if that's the only reason, no, just don't do it. It has the inherent ability to make your mix sound bad, alright? Don't balance your mix in mono. It's simple. And that leads me seamlessly into my next topic. Stop worrying about the wrong thing. Do I put this plugin before this one? EQ before I compress? What do I set the input gain to this? Or what's my final gain setting? Like, all of these questions are material dependent. And they're not stupid if asked in the right context, but there's absolutely no context with them. You can't ask someone online a very specific question about audio with absolutely no audio examples to go along with it. That's like trying to explain the color blue to a blind man who's never seen before in his life and is never going to have the ability to see what you're talking about. It's impossible. You can't do it. You cannot describe a sound to somebody. It just doesn't work. Moving on not so seamlessly to my next topic. And that is asking the wrong questions. Like for instance, how do I get the vocal to sit perfectly in the mix? This is a material dependent question. Whose mix? Your mix? My mix? What instruments are in this mix? These are all questions that need to be answered before I can give you an answer on how to get that vocal to sit right in that specific mix. Because there's no generalistic answer that's going to solve that problem. There's no just slap a plugin on and boom, it's done. I mean, if you ask a general question like that, you're bound to get answers like EQ, compression, saturation, reverb, like stupid things like that. Just one-word answers that are absolutely no help at all. So I suppose it's not asking the wrong questions, it's asking the questions without any context. Maybe if you would ask, you know, hey, how do I get the vocal to sit right in this mix? And then post a private link with that mix or something to that effect. That might be a better way to go about it. You might get a better solid response. See what I mean by material dependent is two producers can take the same vocal track, right? Make two separate productions around it. Based on the frequency distribution of those instruments, they're going to both treat the vocal differently with EQ curves, compression settings, and saturation, and even different reverb settings. Again, it's all material dependent. And without any context, there's no way to know how to help. And I wish this video reaches as many people as possible, because this is the video that I wish I'd seen when I first started mixing. Because trial and error was how I got there, all right? I tried literally every stock plugin and every third-party plugin I had on vocals, guitar, drums, the kick by itself, the snare, the toms, everything, piano, pretty much anything you can think of. I tried all the plugins on just to see how they would warp that sound. Then I got to know all of my plugins, and eventually I started building complicated signal chains, and I eventually just knew how I wanted to create the sound I heard in my head. You know, and then that led me to creating amazing effect racks for all you guys, which is going to eventually turn into plugins that you guys can use. Oh, by the way, there's some links in the description for some of those effect racks that you can get for free on my website. There's also some paid products there too. Because in music production, there isn't just one way to do the job. There are many ways, there are many roads that lead to Rome, and there are some rules, and you can break them sometimes, but the only way you're going to figure it out is by trial and error. And with that comes the conclusion of our video. If you stuck around to the end and you're an Ableton user, there's some links with free racks in the description. There's also some paid products on my website. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Mr. Audio, out.